Hello everybody, and welcome to this very special 7th episode of the Iancast. This episode is very special because we are recording this on the anniversary of Amelia Earhart's solo flight from Hawaii to California. Going with the theme, this episode today is sponsored by airplanes, getting you from one place to another since the 1500s. So, I'm going to take the sounds that you've suggested and, to the best of my ability, replicate them with my vocal cords. Let's begin. So, our first sound is going to be from Carlisle. And Carlisle has given me the sound of a cat begging for attention. I own 27 cats, so I know the sound very well. Let's begin. Meow. 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 And that was the sound of a cat begging for attention. Thank you, Carlisle. Next, we have Costube. And Costube has given us the sound of a bathroom fan. For some reason, I have a feeling that Costube knows the sound of a bathroom fan very well. Let's begin. And that was the sound of a bathroom fan. Thank you, Costube. Third, we have Dwayne. And Dwayne has given us the sound of a rock. I don't know if he didn't finish a rock band, or if he just means the sound of what our Earth is made out of. But I'm gonna go with the latter and try to make the sound as best as I can. Let's begin. And that was the sound of a rock. Thank you, Dwayne. For our fourth sound, we have Patty with the sound of sheep digesting grass. I don't know if this is a singular sheep or multiple sheep, seeing as in the English language, it uses the same word for both. Get it together, English. Let's begin. And that was the sound of sheep digesting grass. Thank you, Patty. For our next sound, we have Abe with the sound of cheese molding. Now, many of you might not know this, but cheese is a form of mold itself, but I'm assuming this means cheese going bad after it has already been pasteurized. Let's start with this next sound. And that was the sound of cheese molding. Thank you, Abe. For our next sound, we have what I believe to be crier, and the sound is Iancast locked in a room. Well, I lock myself in this room every week to record these episodes, so the sound of Iancast being locked in a room is the sound of these recordings every week. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. Number 7 is Aaron, spelled with an I. And it is the sound of Mario's death music. I'm assuming this is Super Mario and not Mario Andretti. So, let's begin. And that was the sound of Mario's death music. Thank you, Aaron. Next, we have Marianne with the sound of a deaf person desperately signing for help while drowning in a pool. This is a very odd sound that I've only heard twice before in my lifetime, but I will try to do it as accurately as possible. Let's begin. And that was the sound of a deaf person desperately signing for help while drowning in a pool. Thank you, Marianne. Up next, we have Marge with the sound of bubbles rising to the surface of pudding. I absolutely loathe pudding, but I will try my best. Let's begin. And that was the sound of bubbles rising to the surface of pudding. Thank you, Marge. Up next, we have Matt with the sound of an otorhinolaryngologist. I honestly do not know how to pronounce this word, but it's some sort of ologist meeting with a concerned patient. Let's begin. And that was the sound of some sort of ologist meeting with a concerned patient. You may have noticed that these people are in the same world as the Peanuts characters, as they do not speak English once they have reached the mature age of adulthood. Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Sue with the sound of a rabbit encountering a hungry cat. Let's begin. And that was the sound of a rabbit hopping away after encountering a hungry cat. Thank you, Sue. And now it's about halfway through our episode, so you'll be hearing a word from our sponsor, aeroplanes. Aeroplanes get you from point A to point B. They get you from one continent to another, and only seldomly crash down into oceans or disappear completely off the globe. Airplanes are a great mode of transportation and are completely fairly priced. Thank you, airplanes, for making our lives easier and your lives even easier. Now we will continue with our scheduled sounds. Our next sound comes from caller, and the sound is Iancast crying for help. I've never had to cry for help in my own life because I've never been in a situation where I have felt endangered, seeing as I am one of the strongest people on the planet Earth. But I will try. Let's begin. Help, please! Help! And that was the sound of me, Iancast, crying for help. Thank you, caller. Up next, we have Mitch. And Mitch has given us the sound of a monkey rubbing feces on its hands. I've been to the zoo many times, so I've experienced this time and time again. Let's start. And that was the sound of a monkey enjoying rubbing feces on its own hands. Thank you, Mitch. The next sound comes from Fasad, and it is the sound of a frog receiving an electric shock. I've never shocked a frog myself, but I've shocked many different other amphibians. So, let's begin. That was a great sound. Thank you, Fasad. Our next sound comes from Alex, and it is the sound of fluoride being poured into public drinking water. I question the safety of pouring such an element straight into a drinking supply. But with a name like Alex, I'd trust him. Let's begin. And that was the sound of someone pouring fluoride into public drinking water. Thank you, Alex. Next, we have Antonio with the sound of a xylophone being played incorrectly. Let's begin. Ding dong, ding ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding 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 dong, ding dong. And that was the sound of a xylophone being played incorrectly. Thank you, Antonio. Up next, we have Jamie. And Jamie has given us the sound of someone dropping a kilo of pure potassium into an aquarium tank. I'm pretty sure that pure potassium actually reacts with water to create some sort of intense heat, possibly an explosion. I'm not exactly sure. But with my limited knowledge of chemistry, let's begin. And that was the sound of dropping a kilo of pure potassium into an aquarium tank. Thank you, Jamie. Up next, we have Chester. And Chester has given us the sound of heavy breathing. My stepson actually has a problem with heavy breathing, so I hear it every time I take him to his weekly soccer games. Let's begin. And that was the sound of heavy breathing. Thank you, Chester. Up next, we have Radley. And Radley has given us a very long suggestion, which is the sound of a skateboarder doing a kickflip over a shark while falling off a cliff on fire. I question whether the skateboarder is on fire while he is doing all these actions, or if the cliff itself is on fire. I assume that either way the skateboarder will catch on fire, so I'll go with the former option. Let's begin. And that was the sound of a skateboarder doing a kickflip over a shark while falling off a cliff on fire. Thank you, Radley. And our final sound of the night comes from Ian. Wow, what a coincidence. The same name. And it is the sound of Iancast escaping a prison, sneaking through Europe, the entirety of Europe, picking a lock, then taking out the imposter who stole his show. This is a very odd
You get out! Stop!
No!
It's my show!
I'm the Iancast!
No!
I'm the Iancast now!
It's Ian time!
No! No! No!
Alright, folks, I am sorry about that. I have been trapped in Europe for about 3 days now. Let me just fix this chair. My editor has gone insane and started claiming that he was Iancast. I see now that he had started to record an episode, so please disregard all previous sounds. And thank you for listening. I don't have a word from sponsors, but I caught a plane coming here, so maybe look into those. I guess we'll still publish this episode. I have nothing else to say. I will. No, you stay back. You don't come back. Don't make me get the chair again.